In this episode, I sit down with Tom Carchidi, a New York City native who traded Long Island for the streets of Baltimore and built a career across several agencies and law enforcement. Tom pulls back the curtain on the realities of the job, the good, the bad, and the corrupt. The same honest, unflinching look he brings to his book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, the corrupt. From his Italian immigrant roots in Brooklyn to everything the badge showed him, Tommy holds nothing back.
The Blue Line Voice. Blood, sand, and smoke.
Tom, it's awesome to have you on the show, brother. Thank you for taking the time today to do this.
Thank you so much for having me on, my friend. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, so we've talked before, and we know each other, but let's get into it. And you went to Baltimore PD, but you were born and raised in New York City, so let's start there.
Yeah, so my whole family before me, my mom and dad, grandparents, aunts and uncles, they were all born in Italy. They're all from Italy. They immigrated to America in the 50s, I believe 1957, and they all moved to Brooklyn because back then Italians were coming to America in droves, but New York was a stronghold, places like Manhattan, Brooklyn, areas in the Bronx. So my parents moved to Brooklyn, and it was almost like Little Italy over there. They came from Italy, but it was all Italians. They stuck together. I was born in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, and then I moved to Long Island with my family when I was young, around 2. But we were always back and forth. My grandparents, aunts and uncles were in Brooklyn. So I'm kind of a mix between Long Island and Brooklyn guy, city guy.
So you went to school and everything on Long Island?
I did. I did. And then I went to college. I went to City University in New York, John Jay College, undergraduate, 50, I believe it was 57th Street in Manhattan. Then I went to CW Post Long Island University in Brookville, New York. So Plain Edge High School, graduated in 93. So Long Island / city.
Yeah. What attracted you into law enforcement, and how did you make it down to Baltimore? How did that all play out?
So I was waiting to get on over here in Long Island. Kind of tough to get on here. Either you have to do really well in the exam, or you have to have, you gotta
know somebody.
You got to know somebody, right? It's kind of like anything in life, only times 100 in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Politics 101 on steroids. Some other nonsense. I was waiting to get on the city and it wasn't happening. So I was going to college at the time, graduate school, and my dad was like, he was reading the newspaper. I think it was the Chief magazine or Chief paper. That was like a civil service paper back then. I'm not even sure if they're still around. It was great paper. And he saw an advertisement for Baltimore. And he's like, I wouldn't advise it unless you wanted to get into law enforcement. He knew how much I wanted to get into law enforcement. He's like, here's this ad and they're saying they're looking for people. Why don't you just go down and apply? So I had nothing to lose. I said, you know what, let me go down for a couple of days. They had a 3-day processing at the time. You go down like on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They do everything. And then you head back. And I was graduating from graduate school at the time. And all I wanted to do at that time in my life, not so much now that I've seen the big picture, but at that time, when you're young, you're idealistic, you see things a certain way, you have your own ideas and perceptions that aren't necessarily true. So all I wanted to do was work in law enforcement. And I went down, I believe like twice, 2 3-day processing. And, Baltimore is just a wild place, a crazy place. They're desperate for good people, good law enforcement officers. So they literally did my background and everything in like 2 months. Literally, most jobs will take years, 6 months to a couple of years to process you in. They processed me in like 2 months, and I got the call on my voicemail at home. Congratulations, you've been accepted. You're pre-hire if you want to come down. So that's how it happened.
What were had to be a little bit of a culture shock when you do the academy down in Baltimore, but when you end up after the academy, you're on FTO and you're like, shit, this is real.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't know anything. I don't think I was ever even in Maryland at the time. And like I said, I grew up I grew up in Brooklyn and Long Island, and I was always in the city, going to the clubs with my friends, going to college, and just hanging out. So I saw the city. I knew what city life was like. But when I went down to Maryland, but not Maryland per se, because Maryland is a very affluent. It's a beautiful, beautiful state. They have some of the richest counties in America. But Baltimore is like a different planet. They drop you into a war zone in a lot of these places, and I just remember going down there, and I was with one of my friends. He was a New York guy too. He's from the Bronx, and he looked at me and he was like, "Tom, I've seen a lot of shit. I grew up in the Bronx, but this place is crazy." And I remember just looking around and just 15,000 abandoned row homes, like
Mhm.
just so different from what I'm used to in Long Island and what most people are used to, totally removed. So yeah, it is, even for a city guy, it's a shock, a little bit of a shock.
I remember during my Air Force days, I was down at Bolin Air Force Base in DC for a little bit. And I remember getting, I don't know, like coming out of DC and going back up through Baltimore. Because I used to drive home every once in a while on my days off, and I got lost in Baltimore twice. That's not a fucking place you want to get lost.
No, no, definitely not.
And that was before like GPS, right? So the you didn't have smartphones. It was like, give me back to 95. How do I get back on 95? It was
Yeah,
I remember there was a girl too she was at Bolin Air Force Base, and she asked me if I could help. She actually lived in Baltimore, and she needed help with something. Still lived with her parents, a piece of furniture or something. She says, she says, "You going back up to New York? Can you help my family and I with this piece of furniture?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Where you live?" She's in Baltimore. I'll tell you what, nice family, but
yeah,
I didn't stick around long. In and out, in and out.
yeah. Depending on where you are, definitely in the city, there's spots you don't want to be at.
I ran into a guy who works up here in upstate New York now, but he was a Baltimore city cop for 2 years because he had to go back through the academy up here, right? So,
Yeah, different state.
yeah, but he was describing to me what it was like working down there. And I was like, are you shitting me?
Yeah,
Heroin is probably still big down there. He's like, it's just like a zombie apocalypse. And people
it's
just, yeah.
people just nodding out in the street. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah. How long did you stay in Baltimore for?
So I was there like your friend about 2 years. Then I transferred out to Montgomery County, Maryland, which is a suburb of DC inside Maryland. Totally different world. You're going from one of the most violent, dangerous big city police departments in the country to a lot of BS, rich people, politicians, Supreme Court judges, huge houses in Bethesda and Potomac, very affluent people, athletes. So it was night and day. I'm glad I got my pension out of there, but I hated it. I hated every minute of Montgomery County, the backstabbing, the nonsense. They were more concerned with jamming up good cops and worrying if you had a strand coming off your uniform to write you up than doing police work. And that's one thing I missed about Baltimore. We didn't have time for that bullshit. If you did the wrong thing in Baltimore, you're getting jammed up. But if you did your job, they acknowledged you, they noticed you, and they weren't looking for dumb shit like that.
Yeah, as long as you do your job within the scope of your duties, you're okay.
Yeah,
In most departments,
yeah,
you do your job within the scope of your duties at other departments, and then you're thinking in the back of your head, I'm gonna get fucking jammed up.
of
Even though
course.
I did it right, I know I did it right, but I'm gonna get jammed up.
Yeah,
And so that's what your book is pretty much about, right?
yes, 100%.
And you tell it all in that thing.
I do. And please continue.
No, we can hit on the book because we're kind of segueing that way right now when you brought up the corruption and the BS and getting written up. And that's very important, and especially in today's law enforcement, because it's still happening. And you hear all the stories about it, and it's like, really? This crap is still happening?
Yeah,
And I think also maybe it's calmed down a little bit, but also with every time there's a change in political theater, stuff happens in the police world, right? I see it like whatever happens at the federal level is going to trickle down to your state, local,
Of course.
municipalities, right? So the corruption, and talk about that.
Yeah. So the first thing, this is going back, 25 years ago. I don't know how people do it today. I could never do the job. I talk to my cousins and, new guys coming up in jujitsu that I train with that are in the police academy, just got out in the street. And I don't even know what the police is today. I don't even understand what it is. I could never do it. I would never do it. I had a problem 20 years ago with policing because I'm not a company guy. I'm not a kiss ass. I'm not a suck ass. I'm a real guy. And I'm going to say what I got to say. They don't want smart guys. They don't want people to express their opinion. They want robots. Okay, whatever. But that's not me. And I really don't know how you do the job today. I was talking to my buddy. He's a NYPD. He's basically in charge of the police academy. He's one of the commanding officers. And he's my jujitsu instructor. He's a jujitsu black belt. He's a 4th degree. I'm a 1st degree black belt. And he's explaining to me what they're being forced to teach in the academy to the recruits and in-service training. And this stuff is worthless. It's going to get you killed. You're not allowed to, literally, a jujitsu black belt that they NYPD brings from their ranks to run the academy is not allowed to teach any kind of real control on suspects. You can't compress the diaphragm at all. So in other words, no knee on belly, really no side control, for people that understand jujitsu, there's basically no control. You're not allowed to do anything. And forget about punching. If you're caught on tape punching on video, even if you're in the right, even if you're, using Article 35 to your advantage to defend yourself, which is, New York State penal law, you're still screwed. So I don't understand how people do it today. From what I'm hearing from like I said, from my friends, my cousins, there's no proactive policing. There's no such a thing. That's done. You just go into call to call, answering your radio, staying in your car, and trying to avoid citizens because every little thing you do, you're going to get jammed up. And I remember when I was a police officer, I was never worried about getting hurt in the street. I knew that was always there. That was an inherent risk, right? But you still had to worry about commanders, the brass, the internal people looking to get you, district attorneys, this, that, the next, internal affairs, forget about it. But now it's out of control, because of politics. If you even touch somebody, you're the bad guy. You're done. So I hate to say it. Everything, I research, everybody I talk to, I really think, and I don't say this just out of tongue-in-cheek hyperbole, I think law enforcement's dead. There's still policing in America in 2026, but law enforcement, going out and catching the bad guy, proactive stuff, plain clothes like we used to do, I think that's dead. It might be small pockets here and there, but I don't think cops are doing that anymore.
There's pockets. They are around, but you're right. I've heard stories about some of the police academies throughout upstate New York. The same shit. Like, what are we doing? Like, you're going to get men and women fucking killed. That's what's going to happen. You're going to get people killed. And complacency is, I don't want to mention the department, but it was upstate. There was they were looking for an armed robbery. So I think it was the wrong armed robbery or maybe a homicide suspect, one or the other. Anyway, the dude had a gun. Like, we'll just put it that way. Like, and they'd been looking for him. They knew who he was. They knew what he looked like. And with all the cameras that are out nowadays, it's unbelievable because the jurisdiction this was in about 24 hours later, a cop identifies the suspect at a bus stop, sees him, parks his patrol car, gets out, and starts walking towards the suspect. The suspect takes off, and things pursue. But I'm thinking in my head, this fuck has a gun. Let's just presume he had a gun. All right. There's probably a pretty good goddamn chance he still had it on him. It was like, hey, buddy, come here and talk to me. And the dude takes off. And the next thing you know, shots fired and the cop gets shot. He lives. And I'm like, fucking complacency kills. Complacency kills. And I can't verify this, but I'm wondering if there's some general orders out there in certain departments about when you can remove your weapon from your holster. I'm almost wondering if there's some sort of general order out there that's floating around that other departments are adopting about. It's bad enough that you have to make split-second decisions as it is, but when they start nitpicking little shit, and I can't confirm or deny if there's a GO about that, but I know for myself, like if shit was going to go sideways, my hand was on that gun.
Yep.
It may not have been out of the holster, and if it did come out of the holster, yeah, it's a use of force, right? We have to document it, but you just cover your ass. You want to go home at night. That's the thing that we always say, right? I'm going home to my family. So, but complacency does kill. And then when you're implementing these tactics or techniques and within the police academies, and we're going to play footsie with these assholes on the street, cops are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. And you want to change what you're doing in the police academy. We'll start watching your workers' comp rates start going through the fucking roof. Unfortunately, it's just the way it's going to go. So
yeah, I agree.
Talk a little bit about your background in martial arts.
So I think about this all the time. And I talk, to students and men and women I train with and, people that love martial arts. I loved it. I was drawn to it, attracted to it, like obsessed with it ever since I was a little kid. Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. Like my parents off the boat from Italy, they don't know anything about martial arts. They're not into that, I just loved it. And sometimes in life, you're just drawn to certain things and you don't know why. Like all the things I love, like growing up, why did I love that? Why did I love certain things, including martial arts? I don't know. I just know. I remember way back when I was like 7, 8 years old, I loved it, watching so many years now, but I believe it was Kung Fu Theater on Fox. When they had like the voice dubbed over the Kung Fu movies, and I just loved it. And I got into karate when I was a kid, 7 or 8, and then I just kept training kickboxing, jujitsu, all kind of martial arts since I was a little boy, and something that stuck. I loved it.
How did it help you in law enforcement?
So yeah, my senior year, towards the end of high school, I really got into martial arts. Like I just dove into it. And I just, ever since then, it's just been like a huge part of my life. And I feel like it's helped me in every aspect of my life, literally every, it's a martial art, but it's a self-defense. It's a self-defense art. It's for fighting. And depending on what style you study, there's a lot of fake Fugazi BS martial arts out there that are going to get you killed. And then there's legit fighting arts, boxing, kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, in my opinion, the single most devastating and effective martial art there is. If you're going to train only one, I would train Jiu-Jitsu.
That's Jiu-Jitsu, correct me if I'm wrong, that's prominently ground fighting?
It is. It's everything starts standing up. You got to take it to the ground with takedowns, strikes, and then you work all the submissions from there. Chokes, submissions, joint locks, ankle locks, body control. And it's super devastating. Super.
Is a lot of jiu-jitsu done by feel and technique?
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's almost like on a simplistic level, like riding a bike. You keep doing it, becomes muscle memory. You don't think about it anymore. You're 5 years old, you start riding a bike, you don't know what you're doing. You're 10 years old, you don't think about it. You jump on your bike and you take off. That's jiu-jitsu only times 1,000. Jiu-jitsu is super technical, and they call it the smart man's martial art because you have to change so many movements and combinations together. So it's very technical. It's a difficult martial art, but once you get it and you start to flow in it, it's like second nature.
That's what we see a lot in MMA, right?
A lot of MMA. You see a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of wrestling, like college, collegiate wrestling. Excuse me, my allergies are beating me up today.
I know the feeling.
College wrestling, you see a lot of boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So unfortunately, I believe you had an injury in law enforcement.
I did.
And you had to retire earlier than you probably wanted to.
I did.
But you never really left law enforcement, right? And I think that's a lot, like once a cop, always a cop. You just don't get rid of it. It just doesn't go away. So right now you're currently in law school. And we had talked about this previously, which I find really intriguing. There are cops that do go into law school. Something may happen, either they could do 20 years or 25 years, retire, then do law school, or they get hurt and then they do law school, or like your situation, what you're doing right now. How far are you into law school? How much longer do you have to go? And what area are you looking to focus on?
So real quick, if you look at the percentage of Americans that graduate law school, right? 0.4% of all Americans do that. And there's a reason. Money, the expense of school, time, but most importantly, it's difficult. Beyond difficult, it's torture at times. It's mental torture. I'll say now, I'm graduating in January. I'm finishing up my 4th year. Thank God. Knowing what I know now, I don't think I would do it again. It's complete torture. You literally dedicate your life for 4 years, then you got to study for the bar exam, another 6 months or a year or whatever. It's serious business, and it's mental gymnastics at the highest level. I think things like medical school, law school, they're not for the weak-minded, the weak-hearted. When I say that, I don't even mean, you do have to be smart, exceptionally smart, in my opinion. When I hear people say, oh, I know this lawyer, he's an idiot, bullshit. You're not passing the bar exam if you're an idiot. That's complete and utter nonsense. It's the opposite. So yeah, but I think the biggest thing is drive and determination. If you don't have it, if you're not ready and willing to get up every day, go to your classes 3, 4, 5 hours, study another 4, 5, 6 hours every day, or at least 5, 6 days a week. Don't even bother. Just leave it alone. You're not going to pass. You're going to make a fool out of yourself in front of your class and in front of the professor when he basically cold calls you for an answer, because it's too expansive, it's too large, and if you're not going to sit there and put the time in, you're not going to know what the hell is going on. The concepts are very, very intricate, and law is very difficult. So it's a unique experience. Law school teaches you to think a different way. You can have brilliant, brilliant, brilliant people, 180 IQ, that go to law school, and they just don't get it because they write differently, they think differently, they focus on different things, and it's a challenge, man. At least for me. I'm only speaking for myself.
Yeah, but one thing I got to say about you, Tommy, is that you've dedicated and you said to yourself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it done. Right. So, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, because the way time flies, January isn't far off. And what area of interest do you have in law? Where do you want to go?
So we're here talking today. Excuse me again. Allergies are terrible.
The horrible.
Our background is law enforcement. I love criminal law. I love everything about it. Not so much the rest of the mundane, archaic. There's so much of the law. The law covers our entire life. There's laws for everything. Some of it is so boring and just dry. Bueller. Remember what was the name of that movie? Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Yeah.
So much of law is like that. Criminal law to me is different. You get a fact pattern. You're a cop. You respond to a job, burglary in progress. What's the facts? What's the fact pattern? Did he kick in the door? Did he climb through the window? Was the door open? Did he have permission to go in? Did he not have permission? Was it a private establishment? Was it a home? Was it a business that's private but that's open to the public? So you have to analyze all these things in a law school fact pattern. And the difference with law school and the police is the police have qualified immunity. We're part of the government. Judges, they will give you the benefit of the doubt. Jurors will give you the benefit of the doubt because bang, bang, split-second decisions on the street. So if you screw up and it's not totally outside of the realm and scope of your duties, you're going to be okay. But in law, they analyze everything because you have time to sit and analyze the material. So you get one attorney that says one thing. It's always amazing because you'll have a case, say a Supreme Court case, brilliant judges, brilliant lawyers, and they may all be split. They may all think opposite on the topic. So law is very specific at times, but a lot of times it's very gray and it can be interpreted. So I just love the specific nature. I love the specific nature of criminal law because it's more specific. It's not so much theoretical. Burglary, the breaking and entering of, say, a dwelling at nighttime with the intent to commit a crime therein. It's specific. You have to meet that code, meet that rule. And if you don't, then you don't have it. So I love that about criminal law. I just love it.
Yeah, with the intent to commit a crime therein, you always have to have that extra component of the crime what was the crime that was committed within, right?
Right.
Or do is it a criminal trespass compared to a burg? There's so,
Exactly.
yeah, I get what you're saying. And I said to my wife a couple years ago, I'm like, I'm thinking about law school. And she goes, you're fucking nuts.
Try it. If that's you, listen, that's what I did. We only live once. And I said to myself, I'm going to try it. If I fail, like if I give it my best shot and I try it, I can always look myself in the mirror. I know I tried, but I can't live with myself two things, knowing I didn't try and then I gave it up. So I'm all for it, man. I'll help you out. You should do it. Try it.
I was looking at the time, I was like, is there any universities throughout the state of New York that do online law school? I think Albany Law has something, and I believe maybe Syracuse University has something.
They're hybrid, and that was always frowned upon in law schools, but they're starting to change now. We'll talk after. I'll give you some info.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I kind of skipped a little bit, but your book is important to me, and it would be important to the audience, especially those that are on the job right now that are experiencing. You've probably seen it, Street Cop. It's on social media. I forget the owner's name. He is awesome at case law.
Yeah, I watch him all the time.
Yeah, but he also gets a lot of messages from cops that are out there throughout the country that talk about their administrations and they want to get out. This guy has awesome advice, and I've seen that in the cop world. Like, if you want to transfer out of your department that is corrupt or sideways, fucked up, whatever you want to call it, do not tell that agency you're currently working for that you are even remotely looking to go someplace else, because I swear to God, if they find out if they find out where you're looking to go, they're going to sabotage that. And the corruption and the mindset of some of these agencies, if somebody wants to get out of an agency, go someplace else, they should not be intervening in that process, but they do. I remember I got to a point where I just didn't tell anybody if I was looking to go someplace else. I did not tell a single soul and let all the motions go through. And then at the last minute, everybody found out and then I was gone. So, but I like Street Cop. Does a very good job, in my opinion. Case law is so important in law enforcement. And something that should be brought up more during academies and in service is case law and understanding case law. And I'm a nut when it comes to it. I enjoy it, but also the corruption. And I want to talk more about that, if you don't mind. And we can hit on that a little bit more and what you saw from your lens.
Listen, corruption is an umbrella term, right? I saw a lot of good in the police department, but I saw a hell of a lot of bad. And I don't care who likes me for it. As long as I'm honest, at the end of the day, not only can I live with myself, I love myself. It's not true when they say, there's one bad apple out of a bunch. Every day there was something crazy going on. And when I say corruption, it doesn't necessarily have to be, listen, I saw my partners shaking down drug dealers, throwing them in cops. FBI and internal affairs coming and locking up my partners during roll call. That's top of the food chain corruption, right? But then there's little things like you just said, which went on every day, nepotism, politics. I'm not going to name one thing I don't like to do is I don't like to name people and names and departments. In my book, everyone that did good, I named. Everyone that screwed up, I changed the name because I'm trying to tell an overall picture. I'm not trying to rat nobody out. I'm not like that. But there's a big department, big city department where I live, and what they were doing to their own people, talk about corruption and BS. People wanted out of this department at any cost, and they wanted to lateral out, right? This department was refusing to turn over their training records and their certifications to outside agencies so they can get outside employment. Just like you just said, it's crazy what they do to their people. It's crazy. Not only that, it was the unwritten rule. You're 100% correct. If nix that. If a certain department I work for found out that you were trying to go for another job, next thing you know, you're internal affairs for some bullshit, some dumb shit that you don't know anything about. They try to build a paper trail to keep you there. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something minor, they want the other agency to say, oh, well, maybe we don't feel comfortable hiring this guy. That's how they kept you there. So it's a big game, man. It's exactly like you just said.
It's unfortunate for these new cops that are coming into law enforcement. They have no freaking idea
Yes.
what they're getting themselves into. And they're going to see it. And unfortunately, it's going to take a couple of years for that you're going to sit there and look around and you're going to go, oh shit, I got to get out. I got to go someplace else. And money's not everything in law enforcement. You know, I can go to XYZ agency and make $20,000, $30,000 more a year. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, right now, the grass isn't greener on the other side. Money's not going to make you a better cop. It's not. And when I remember this throughout my career, so many people would lateral to those bigger agencies to get more money. And then you ask them 3 to 6 months down the road, how do you like it over there? Hate it. I hate it. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, but in New York State, and we talked about this when we met the first time, and I wanted to hit on this a little bit because you have that law background. We're talking about the Supreme Court and all these things that New York State does, from everything. And a lot of times cases end up in the Supreme Court. And I remember asking you, I said, well, isn't the Supreme Court like king? Like, so a case generates out of the state of New York normally, and I see the pattern, the way it goes is something happens in Albany. They create a law, whatever that law may be. Normally it's a gun law. That's totally unconstitutional. And then some judge in the Western District of New York will overturn it and say it's unconstitutional. And then they'll end up down in the appellate division, and the appellate division will turn it over and say, no, it is constitutional. Then it ends up 2 years later down at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court will say, yep, New York, it's unconstitutional. You can't do it. And as soon as the Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional, New York State already has a law to supersede that law that says it's unconstitutional and make another unconstitutional law.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big fucking circle jerk that is continuous all the way around. And then, I think the one thing we could talk about, and I don't care talking about it, is the Second Amendment, where there's so many law-abiding gun citizens in the state of New York. And we're the ones that have to deal with these idiotic, unconstitutional laws that make zero sense. The Supreme Court Bruin was was a landmark case that should have stopped all this shit, and it's still going on. And you did explain this to me when I said, I remember asking you, if the Supreme Court says you can't do this, but yet Albany still keeps doing it, where are the politicians held accountable that are making these laws? And you said, right, and you said qualified immunity or absolute immunity. So there's no repercussion.
The judges have the absolute immunity, and the prosecutor,
And I'm like, I did not know this. So they can keep making these stupid, idiotic laws, and there's no repercussions to it. And it's like giving the Supreme Court the middle finger.
100%. 100%. Well, think about it this way. I'll talk through it real quick because I know time is limited. 2008, I say the liberals, the left, the anti-gun people pushed it. There was a case that went to the Supreme Court, DC versus Heller, Heller versus DC. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was as if we actually even needed that. The Second Amendment is right there in your face, the right to bear arms. But the left said, no, that's not what it means. It's just for the military and the militia. Okay, so in Heller versus DC, the Supreme Court ruled this man, Heller, a special police officer in DC, has the right to have a firearm in his house readily accessible to use. You can't tell him he can't have a gun in DC or lock it up in the basement somewhere. What good is that going to be for him? It's not. So that was first of the big cases, Second Amendment. Second, I'm not going to go through them all, but Chicago versus McDonald, right? Along the same lines. Illinois tried doing the same BS. Supreme Court said, no. We already ruled in Heller. Now we're telling you again. A third one, huge. Bruin Pistol Rifle Association case. Mm-hmm. Not only did they say it was a Second Amendment right, they said, you're going to stop your bullshit with this May issue licensing crap. Because NYPD, New York City, Nassau, if they don't want to give you a pistol permit, they said, screw it. We ain't giving you. No one's going to force it. No one's going to force us to give you one. Supreme Court said, enough of this bullshit. Unless you're a felon, you're in the psych ward for hurting people yourself, you're entitled to a firearm. That's the third big case. But it doesn't end. Then you got California, you got Maryland, you got Hawaii putting these bans. Yep. The more that the Supreme Court smacks them down, the more they come back. Okay, now you got this case in D.C. that was just decided. I'm sorry, in Hawaii that was just decided last week.
Yes.
The Supreme Court said the left tried to flip history and say that there's no presumption that you can carry your firearm in a publicly accessible place. And the only way you can carry a firearm, in Hawaii was trying to say, is if a store owner puts a sign saying you can. That's the exact opposite of history, of traditions in this country. They flipped it. So the Supreme Court smacked that down now and said, you can't limit people from carrying their firearm in public. If you have to go to a gas station, if you have to go to a supermarket, what, you're going to make somebody a felon for having a firearm? It's BS. So now you have all these cases, right? Let me ask you something. Anybody with a brain would say the gig is up, the courts have ruled, but do you think places like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, DC, you think that they're going to abide by this? Course not. And this is what they do. But the good thing about it, last thing I'm going to say about that, there's so many cases now on the Second Amendment, so much case law, they have very little wiggle room to make these stupid laws. So now if they keep making these laws against case law decision, Supreme Court, highest law of the land, you can have a lawsuit now. So now they got to start watching themselves.
At least that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 9/11. You ended up with getting cancer later in life after 9/11. Yeah. Can you walk through that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I was a volunteer down at 9/11. I was in between law enforcement jobs. I went down a couple days, and who knows? You never really know where cancer is from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's accredited to being down there. And the 9/11, the World Trade Center Health Commission takes care of my medical and everything. So basically, I started having severe, like over-the-top pain in my back. And I just kept letting it go because I'm pushing it off, kicking the can. So I'm a tough guy, I'm a pretty tough guy. I don't let things like that bother me. But the pain became too much. And long story short, I got imaging and I had a big tumor on my back, on my T5 vertebrae. It was breaking my back. Fast forward, I had a tumor in my lymph node that spread throughout my body, spread to my back. And I was really, really messed up, jacked up. Only through the grace of God, I'm still here. I'm big and strong again, back in, working out in jiu-jitsu, but I'm never going to be who I was in the past. I'm 50, cancer survivor, but compared to where I was 3 years ago, it's night and day, thank God.
It's good to hear. Yeah, and they do have, for the 9/11 first responders, the cancer network they have is pretty good. And I can say this, that cancers, when they start seeing cancers rolling out of a specific area, they could pretty much start pinpointing, saying, okay, yeah, this is definitely correlated to that theater, that area, right? Even in communities where they got like factories and stupid shit and people are getting these same types of cancers, okay, we can correlate that. And especially like my background with the toxic burn pit exposures in Iraq, we're seeing that it's almost like burn pit survivors are getting the very similar cancers. So there's no denying it. It's something you can't really backpedal or get out. So
Right.
for
My cousin was just talking about that the other day. He's a retired Marine and he just retired from law enforcement as well. He was just talking about the fires in Iraq and all that, and a lot of people he knows that are sick from it.
It's hell, and they've made it. We compare it to our Agent Orange. It's our era of Agent Orange. Remember, I don't want to say the agency's name. It's a federal acronym. You know what it is.
The C.
No.
Oh, okay.
Shit, don't say that. But organization that's. I could help any day of the week. They're awesome. It's called Burn Pits 360. They were a major component of getting legislation passed in DC in 2022 for the burn pits. And even though that this legislation was passed and a lot of presumptive illnesses are now covered, thankfully, we're still being denied. It's bullshit. And it looks so much like Agent Orange. I remember my mom and dad's era, that was the Vietnam era, and their friends would, I remember as a kid hearing Agent Orange stories and they weren't getting any help. There was nothing, and it wasn't until recently where they actually said, okay, Agent Orange was real and we're going to start taking care of you. Well, how many of those poor assholes died off before they actually acknowledged it, which is horrible. And the same thing's happening with us. So, but for a young cop that's getting into law enforcement or is in law enforcement and they're seeing the corruption that's going on, what would you tell them?
I mean, honestly, you want my honest opinion?
Say
Real
it.
talk?
Real
I wouldn't
talk.
advise. I wouldn't advise any of my friends or family to get into law enforcement today. Never. For what? I'm just being honest. I would say, listen, go back to school, get a degree, become a professional, go learn a trade, learn how to use your hands. I would never, the way things are today, don't get me wrong. We need good law enforcement, just like we need the good military people. God bless them all. But I don't think I would tell my son if I had one at this point, or a cousin or whoever. Oh, yeah, go join the police department. It's going to be great. I won't do that. I won't.
Yeah. I have 2 young kids, so I'm going to point them towards find a trade or be a firefighter.
Oh, that's fireman. That's the best job in the world, man. My buddy
Yeah.
was a fireman. The best job.
Yeah. And my hat's off to firefighters, man, because I did the volunteer shit for, I think it was 12 years, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But these paid guys, volunteers, to do what they're doing, my hat's off to them, because it's a fucking dangerous job.
100%.
Dangerous.
100%.
I pick on firefighters. Yeah, you sleep and, you got your bed, you get to sleep, and you got your kitchen, you make your food, blah, blah, blah. But no, in all honesty, it is a very dangerous job.
Yes.
And I don't give a shit if you're paid or volunteer. That's another situation here in New York State right now, that volunteer fire departments cannot get volunteers because the requirements are so strict to be a volunteer.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to get into people that are single right out of high school, try to recruit them into being a volunteer, but also they're trying to get incentives, like tax breaks or what have you, into the volunteer service. There's going to be a little bit more. I'd like to see, because right now, like, anybody that's in the volunteer service, they have to attend classes, 2-3 nights a week for forever, it seems like, before they can actually be an interior firefighter and do a lot more on a fire scene. I'd like to see it where if they would incorporate the firematic courses into a condensed version where that firefighter, prospective volunteer, goes to, I don't know, Watkins Glen is where the fire academy is for New York State. I'm not saying it has to be in Watkins Glen, but like a 2 to 3 week condensed, they take everything, put it in 2 to 3 weeks. And then let's say they have a job where they give the employer an incentive for their employee to go attend this fire training.
Right.
It's not a long time. They go, they do it, they knock it out, they get it done with, then they can come back to their community, continue their civilian job, and serve their community in the volunteer capacity and have all that training knocked out. Instead, they're doing 2 to 3 nights a week, driving wherever the course may be. It could be 30 minutes to an hour away. They have to drive to it. They have to, I don't know how many hours a night it is. And some of these folks got families, and it's a lot. It's a lot to ask for out of a volunteer. And what are they getting in return? Pretty much nothing.
Yep.
So
That's a tough job, man.
it
Listen,
is.
We joke with my friend. One of my best friends was a fireman. He's retired. You sleep and eat at the station 80% of the time. But even if the truth is 95% of the time they're at the station, just said, which it's not. I'm just throwing out a number. That 5%, they're out in fires.
Yes.
They're in fires.
Yes.
So I don't care if it's 1%. That's something. Listen, we saw a lot as police officers, right? But being in a fire, the claustrophobia, being in that atmosphere, that environment, I don't think I could do it. I would want to do it, man. I really take my hat off to those guys. That's some serious business, firefighting.
It is. So your book, where can people find the book?
You can find my book anywhere, man. Online, Amazon. Just Google Life in Law Enforcement, police memoir, The Good, the Bad, the Corrupt. It's all over.
It's all over. And
Yeah.
how about finding you on social media?
You'll find me too, Thomas Carchidi. Just Google my name. You'll see me pop up. Life Enforcement is my website, lifeenforcement.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm out there.
Law Chariot.
That's part of my LLC. It's all part of, I used to have another business, and it's part of this business now.
Gotcha, buddy. Well, Tommy, it's been great having you on the podcast. Hopefully I'd like to interview you again towards the end of law school or after you graduate from law school and see where things are going and how things are happening out there in the real world of law.
Yeah, Josh, anytime, pal. Thank you so much. And we'll do it whenever you want.
Yeah, buddy. Hang on a second. I'll be right with you, bud.
Thank you.